So for years I used to buy pre-cut pieces of chicken until one day I finally just mustered up the confidence to buy a whole chicken and try to break it down myself. And trust me, it was not the best butcher job at all. But what it was a sort of breakthrough into a new dimension of chicken creativity and delicious meals. And since then, my chicken prep has only improved. So what we're gonna do today is go on a little bit of a journey. First, I'll be showing you how to break down a whole chicken in what I think is the simplest way possible. Then I'll show you how to take those individual pieces and transform them into 5 different foods that you can use to create incredibly diverse and delicious meals throughout the entire week. So 2 years ago, I put out a series on whole chicken, and since then, I've only gotten better at butchering and at using up the different pieces of chicken, which is the goal as a home cook. We're always improving. And in that series, I actually took a little trip to the farmer's market, and I got some really good tips from a chicken farmer who's butchering dozens of chickens a day. And I still use that basic breakdown, so we're just gonna run through it real quick. The first cut I'm gonna make is just kind of opening up these legs, the skin right between the legs and the breast, just slice that. And then kind of crack this open just like that. And this open chicken is just gonna make everything much easier to butcher. Now, every chicken's gonna be a little different, but you see right here, I've got a ton of just excess skin. Now here's the butt, so I'm just gonna slice that right off, crunch right through that. And then I like to take these wings off, get them out of the way. And really you're just slicing right through that joint. You're never cutting through bone, which is great when you're butchering chicken. Same thing over here. And if you can't find the joint, just kind of crack it open. That's gonna be much easier for you to find where you need to slice. So now this is one of the trickier cuts. We've got to take the leg off the carcass. And there's this little piece called the oyster right here. So you can see if you just bend it like this, you can feel that seam, that natural crease right here. So we can really just trace that out with our knife, and then we just really slice through. That was actually very easy. And then we have the thigh bone over here, the drumstick, the full chicken leg. Now all we're left with is the backbone, the carcass, attached to the 2 breasts. Now really this is the only other difficult cut you need to make. You have the breastbone going right in between these breasts. So you're gonna find that. It's hard, it's pointy, so that's not difficult. And you're just gonna start cutting to one side. You're almost filleting the breast meat right off the bone. So you're just slowly kind of splicing it open, trying to get way at the bottom so you don't lose any meat. And you just keep kind of peeling it away. It's gonna naturally peel away. You don't need much knife work. You can see we're almost there. Just slice that right off. Fully intact breast meat with, this is the little tender. You can see that's just gonna naturally remove. Second breast, peel a tenderloin right off. And now we're left with the carcass. The main reason why you should be breaking down your own chicken. Wash my hands. So I will break this carcass down just a little bit more to help in the roasting process. We want to create a little more surface area for more flavor. And I'm going to use these kitchen shears, demi-sene, which I love. That piece, and then same thing here, just cut that right in half. So that's 3 solid chunks right there. So this is basic breakdown right here. Breast, tenderloin, leg, carcass, extra stuff there, and wings. But we're going to take it a step further and break down the legs and the wings. Start with the legs. This is really simple. Again, we're just finding that natural seam, and then you can sort of break that open just to reveal the joint and just pop straight through with your knife. There shouldn't be resistance if you do it right. Oh yeah, and I'm just gonna take out these bones right now of the thigh, and we'll use them for stock. I've shown you how to do that many times. Perfect boneless chicken thigh with the skin on. And I've shown you this before, which couldn't be easier. We're just gonna crack that open, cut right through there, and then just chop off that tip. And now we've got the 3 pieces separated. Wash my hands. So what I'm gonna do right away, which I pretty much always do, is preheat the oven to 425 Fahrenheit, a nice roasting temperature. And then check this out. Start from the bottom. Chicken thighs, bone out. Chicken breast, skin on. Chicken tenderloin. Drumsticks, 4 wings, extra skin in the little butt, extra bonage. And that's what we're gonna start with right now. So get yourself a little baking sheet or a big baking sheet, doesn't really matter. And take a bit of oil on the bottom. You don't need much. Just so it doesn't stick. Now we're gonna add all of these beautiful bones. This right here is why butchering your own chicken becomes so economical and so beneficial. Wash my hands again. I'm gonna coat them in a little bit of oil and a little bit of salt. The amount of flavor we're gonna get by roasting these bones and making stock is insane. So this isn't fully preheated, but that's fine. Throw it in the oven. It's gonna be about 45 minutes to an hour once it's preheated. All right, so we're about 50 minutes in. We're talking flavor. That's how you make a good stock right there. So good. Pop this out. So the first thing I'm gonna do is get a little jar here just to start collecting that chicken fat or schmaltz, which is liquid gold. And we'll get more when we render off that extra skin. Now, what I'm gonna do is really, really simple. I've got a little pressure cooker, slow cooker. You can just use a regular pot. And that low heat is gonna give us a crystal clear golden stock. Now this, all the fond on the bottom, that is so important that we get up. Boom. Right in there. I'm gonna fill this up with water. Doesn't really matter how much. You can always add more to dilute it later on. I'm gonna set this for 12 hours. Pop the top on. So we'll let this slow cook away. So we've made a massive dent already in our prep. Up next, I'm gonna work on these chicken breasts. So I have no idea what the exact numbers are, but my guess is that 90% of people, at least in this country, just buy chicken breast exclusively, which is kind of funny because it's my least favorite cut. But this recipe has actually, I would say, changed my perspective on chicken breast. I'm back in the game, thanks to some help from a little friend. So the first thing I'm gonna do is remove this skin. Now in the last series I fried up the chicken breast, and I think I made a salad with it, which is totally a fine thing to do. But to me, chicken breast can be tricky to get right. So I find just throwing it in the sous vide without the skin and not worrying about it at all. So I've got this sous vide bag here. I'm gonna pop chicken breast in there, plus those chicken tenders. Now we'll remove this, wash my hands again. Now we'll add a little bit of salt, a little bit of pepper. So the spice here is more of just a light infusion as it slow cooks in sous vide. I'm gonna take a few lemon slices. These are Mayer lemons, beautiful citrusy flavor. And then I've got some parsley, but I'm just gonna use some of the stem. We'll save the actual leaves for the chicken salad, and the stems will hold up a bit better in that cooking process. Peel it off, take this little air sucker pump thing, and boom, ready to rock and roll. So I'm gonna fill up this pot with water, and you could totally just poach the chicken. That's gonna work great too. But if you do have sous vide capabilities, that's sort of next level pro home cook action. Just not necessary. And I honestly don't sous vide that often, but these little plug-in machines that hook right to the side of the pot, they work great. And you can just store them away so easily. I do have to look something up real quick. Kenji Lopez in the Serious Eats days, you can trust this man with your life because you know he was recipe testing like a goddamn beast. And he's got a little breakdown here, which is perfect because it actually tells you 150 Fahrenheit, 66 Celsius is best for tender and juicy for a cold chicken salad. Thank you, Kenji. So 1 hour minimum, 4 hours max. I've been doing it at 3 hours. Into the bath we go. Now I'll take a plate just to weigh down the chicken. Make sure it's submerged. So the chicken took about a 3-hour water bath and it's good to go. I will let it cool off just a bit before cutting into it to not lose any extra juices. Now I'm gonna slice up the chicken into tiny little rough cubes. And once we're cubed, now it's time for the flavor. I'm starting with those parsley leaves. I'm gonna give them a rough chop and get that into the mix. And about 2 tablespoons of mustard, followed by some capers for a salty kick. Oh my goodness, I almost forgot the crunch in this dish. So crucial to get some fresh veggies that are gonna give it some texture. I'm chopping up some celery here into small little pieces, but carrots work great as well in your chicken salad. And then I'll squeeze in some lemon juice to just brighten everything up a bit. And I'm gonna grate in some garlic on my microplane to give it a nice little spicy kick. And then finally, of course, you gotta bring it together with your mayo. So a few fat tablespoons of that and just mix it up until it's perfect.
When's the last time you made really good chicken salad? Have you ever made good chicken salad?
That is so much better than your classic deli or store-bought chicken salad because the flavor is just, and it will only get better with time. Trust me on that. A day in the fridge, 2 days in the fridge, so good. So this, I don't know what I'm gonna make with it, but I'm sure there'll be some creative meals coming later in this video.
We are cruising through this prep. So next up is the easiest prep we're gonna do. I'm gonna focus on these chicken thighs. I'm going to actually salt brine them. So just get a paper towel because you wanna make sure everything's nice and dry. Pop your chicken thigh on the paper towel. A good amount of moisture came off that, as you can see.
Wash my hands. So dry brining will probably be the most important thing you ever learn about meat. More important than butchering because you can do it to any piece of meat. And it's also the simplest thing you can do.
We're just gonna season our chicken thighs with salt. And you can do this with any cut, with the breasts, with the drumsticks, but the reason I'm focusing on the thigh here,
To me, this is the prized possession of the entire chicken. I think it has the most flavor. I think it has the best texture. And when cooked correctly, you really can orient an entire meal around this.
so you wanna season both sides, and when you're seasoning, you just want a nice coating of salt, nothing too crazy. You don't want to over salt. So I'm gonna take a plate, pop my chicken thighs on there, skin side up.
Now I'll take these over to the fridge, pop those up there, uncovered. Now if uncovered meat in your fridge weirds you out, then just cover it with saran wrap. You'll still get the cure, you just won't get the benefit of the extra crispy skin.
So since those chicken thighs are nice and thin, one day is the perfect time for a salt brine, and overnight in the fridge.
But you can do 2 days. I've pushed it to 3 if I forgot, and it's still fine.
So when I am breaking down a chicken, I'm thinking, okay, the next day,
I'm gonna have these incredible chicken thighs to use for some crispy goodness, which right now, I don't know exactly what that will be, but I have some ideas, so stay tuned.
So we are flying through this prep. Now, the last pieces I have, and the last prep we're gonna do before we actually start making delicious meals for the week,
I've got the wings
and I've got the drumsticks.
Both of these cuts can handle a nice long, slow cooking, braising process where they get nice and tender and shredded.
And that's what I'm gonna do. But the first thing, while we prep everything, I'm gonna take all of this chicken skin. I'm gonna start rendering all this extra fat, and we'll reserve some and we'll use some for this dish.
And what I'm making is a chicken adobo. Actually, wash my hands. So I'm using 3 different Mexican dried chilies. We've got pasilla, guajillo, and ancho. So I'm gonna be removing all the stems, the seeds, and most of those inner white veins of the chilies. I really just want the flavor of the chili, and I'll get some spice with any extra seeds that make it into the dish. I'm taking a scissors to these chilies and cutting them up into rough pieces, and everything can be super rough in this dish because it's all getting blended up in the end. Now that the chilies are prepped, I'm moving on to the chicken, and I'll just coat that in some salt and some pepper. Get that nice and seasoned, and then I'll move on to my fresh aromatics, some rough chopped onion, and I'm just gonna smash some garlic cloves and keep them whole.
So dried chilies are prepped, aromatics. This is coming along nice. You can see fat has rendered. I didn't add any extra fat to this, but I've got a good 5 minutes more.
In the meantime, go over here for some spice action. See what we can get. Definitely cumin. Wouldn't mind some cinnamon in there. This is what I think. Yes. Oregano for the win. That's good for me.
So I've just been holding the pan like that to get it finished off. Move these crispy pieces. So good. I'll probably just eat those. I don't know if there's anything that tastes better than that in the culinary world. So I've got my schmaltz. That's a lot of fat. I don't need all that fat, but I do need some of it. Oh, that looks pretty good.
Now we're gonna braise this chicken. So the first step is getting that chicken in the chicken fat and getting some nice color on all sides, which is gonna take around 7 to 10 minutes, depending on your heat level. Then I'll remove that chicken and in with the aromatics with a little pinch of salt. And I'm just cooking these down to soften them up, get some nice color, build a little flavor, which is gonna take around another 5 minutes. And then boom, in with the chilies.
So you don't actually have to pre-toast the chili because we're doing it right now. You can see it's getting nice and toasty. Now I'm just gonna add a little bit of cumin seed, some fresh oregano, and then this cinnamon stick, half a cinnamon stick. I'll deglaze with some water. Get all that goodness up from the bottom. And then the base is tomatoes. Yeah, whole can. That's 28 ounces. A little bit more water.
So after about 5 minutes of bubbling away, I'm gonna add some salt. Then it's time to blend, which, yeah, this was an absolute disaster due to the lack of height on this pan. So I'm switching to a blender, which, yep, much better. Now that's my adobo sauce. I'm gonna pour it right back into my pan, followed by the chicken. And I'll put that on a very low heat and cook it for about 1.5 hours. But really, you'll know when it's done, when that chicken is falling off the bone. All right, so it's been about 2.5 hours. I really let this go on a low and slow because I wanted it nice and tender. Ooh, look at that sauce. So the chicken should be, the chicken should be falling right off the bone pretty much. Yep, and that sauce is beautiful. So I'm just going to take all of the pieces, pop them into a bowl. Now this sauce, we won't need to use all of it directly on the chicken. I'm just gonna split it into 2 containers. That way I'll have some extra that I can freeze. Oh, actually, you know what this would be incredible with that I'm definitely gonna make? Some enchiladas. So the chicken in here, I'm just gonna let that cool and then I'll shred it. The options are endless for this. Definitely making enchiladas, but I'm excited to see how this sauce takes shape throughout the week. And right now I'll just let this chicken cool for a few minutes and I'll start shredding. All right, chicken prep officially done. And before I start turning out meals for the entire week, I wanted to tell you about today's sponsor, which is Mizzen. And when it comes to equipment, the #1 question I get from all of you is about knives. When you go to purchase a knife, it can definitely be a bit overwhelming. There's so many styles, materials, shapes, and sizes, but I always tell people the same thing. Get yourself a really good all-purpose chef knife and learn how to use it. And over the years, I've personally collected a whole bunch of different styles of knives, but I always end up coming back to the Mizzen 7-inch chef knife. And I think it's because Mizzen did an incredible job crafting a knife that has both the Japanese feel of precision balanced with that German style, a little more strength, a little more weight, which makes a really versatile product for all your cutting needs for a price that's around 2 to 3 times cheaper than other premium brands. So if you're interested in investing in a great chef knife like this or any other Mizzen products, check out the link below. Use code word HOMECOOKS for 20% off your first order. Now we can make some chicken dishes. So there was one little piece of prep left, which was making a teriyaki sauce, taking advantage of that chicken stock, plus a little mirin, soy sauce, cornstarch slurry, sesame seeds, and boom. The first meal of the week was lunch right after I prepped, and I went straight for the chicken salad. First, I fried up some leftover spinach I needed to get rid of, chopped up some lettuce and pickles, threw that chicken salad on a flour tortilla with some cheese, grilled it up, popped on those freshies, really tasty lunch. Now that night, I actually had to prep a little meal because I was going to the Brooklyn studio to grab some camera gear the next day. So I fried up the chicken thighs nice and crispy, added in the rest of the spinach, wilted that down, air fried some broccoli, and packed everything up, served over rice with the side of the teriyaki. Now for actual dinner that night, I made some noodles using about 4 cups of the chicken stock. I added in some shiitake mushrooms, and in the moment, for whatever reason, I saw some seaweed and I decided to throw that in, which turned out to not be the best flavor combination. And to serve up the noodles, I dolloped in a little bit of chicken fat on the bottom of the bowl. And for the seasoning, I actually added the teriyaki sauce, some rice noodles, poured over the broth, and added a half-boiled egg. Overall, definitely not one of my better noodle dishes. The flavors didn't quite work out, but I will get some noodle redemption later in the week. Oh yeah, and just a note, one thing I learned recently was that tortilla dough or masa is basically the same consistency as Play-Doh. So for anyone with kids out there, a great way to entertain your kids and meal prep at the same time is to make some corn tortillas. So the next day when I got to the studio, I just destroyed that teriyaki bowl. And since I had some extra time, I whipped up some enchiladas while I was there. Tortillas, shredded chicken, black beans, repeat. And once the air fryer was filled up, I smothered them with that extra adobo sauce, covered them with cheese, and then into the air fryer. And these were so delicious and actually turned into a few dinners. So right here was a little chicken salad snacker that my wife had for lunch because she was a little too hungry to wait for the main event, which were these yummy little slider rolls that I had whipped up that day. And I roasted up some cauliflower in the air fryer, then simply scooped on some chicken salad over those rolls and a little bit of sauerkraut. And this lunch really hit the spot. Okay, now it's time for some noodle redemption. I blanched a bunch of greens and stir-fried them up with some onions and a little bit of that teriyaki sauce. Now I had a few watermelon radishes hibernating in the fridge, so I decided to finally turn them into pickles. Then for the soup, I added some chicken fat to a pot, a nice glop of some homemade miso, fried that up a bit, and slowly emulsified in some chicken stock. I poured that over some rice noodles, added some air-fried crispy shiitake mushrooms, those pickled radishes, and these noodles were a 10 out of 10. So good. Now at this point, I was running pretty low on the shredded chicken, so to bulk it up a bit, I added in some beans and rice and the adobo sauce to make a nice little taco filling. Fried up some tortillas, added a base of some creamy avocado sauce, hit it with those pickles, and then I air fried some little crispy potatoes on the side and served that up for an awesome meal. And the final meal for the week to use up the remaining little chicken salad I had was a salad that I made using anything remotely fresh I had in the fridge at that point. I massaged up some chopped kale with a little bit of lemon, added some romaine, crispy tortillas, chicken salad, black beans, fresh radish, pickled radish, shaved cheese, and dress. So there you go. You don't just need to make soup out of a whole chicken. You can really push it to make incredible meals all week long. And of course, after a few days, if you're sick of chicken, you can freeze things, which I actually did, which probably would have equated to a few more meals that I didn't actually count in this video. So thanks for sticking with me. I know this video was a little delayed on the release, but I actually had my second child last week. So I'm just slowly integrating back into the world of YouTube, but there are some awesome things coming for Pro Home Cooks, some big upgrades in 2022. So I'm very excited to keep these videos flowing, and yeah, that's about it. Hopefully you make some chicken, and I'll see you in the next video.